Every week, Hillsdale College President Larry Arnn joins Hugh Hewitt to discuss great books, great men, and great ideas. This is Hillsdale Dialogues, part of the Hillsdale College Podcast Network. More episodes at podcast.hillsdale.edu or wherever you find your audio.
Morning glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. I'm Hugh Hewitt. The Hillsdale Dialogue is upon us, the last radio hour of the week. I've already heard from some of you who know that we are moving in the new year to the afternoons. What's going to happen in the Hillsdale Dialogue? Nothing at all. It's still going to be the last radio hour of the week, and you're still going to be able to hear it. And Dr. Arnn may even be more available than he is now, although he's more of a morning guy than an evening guy. You usually have a lot going on campus on 5 p.m. on a Friday, don't you, Dr. Arnn, or is your work week over?
No, a girl's work is never done. There's these 1,650 kids out there, and God knows what they're doing at any given moment.
On Friday night especially. On Friday night, you've got to be very attentive. Dr. Arnn, it's been 5 weeks and 3 days since the election. So we're taking a break from Plato. And Dr. O'Toole and you talking about Plato, just to reflect on the 5 weeks and on the election, and what do you think is happening with the nominations and just generally the sense of change in the country? How are you summing it up for people?
Well, it's I have witnessed many transitions. They're very chaotic things. This one is way better. They're running a railroad. They've been thinking about it for years. 4 years. It's just, to me, I don't know many of the leading people. I have had email correspondence with a couple of them, but they look like really impressive people to me. Susie Wiles is the daughter of Pat Summerall, the great football announcer.
You bet.
She's got to be a great woman. John Madden's partner. And so I think it's, first of all, it's more orderly than they seem to me to be as a rule. Because somebody gets elected president, there's several thousand jobs you've got to give, you got to fill. How do you go about that? And Donald Trump is a revolutionary force, and I think in a very good way myself. And he's going to try to establish political control over the government of the United States. And what political control means is the people vote for people, and they control the government. And if the people don't like it, they can vote for others. And that's consent of the governed. And so this is what this fight is about.
Have you
Have
you noticed anything different about the president-elect from 4 and 8 years ago?
He's always been a force of nature, still is. I think, they shot him and they tried to put him in jail. He may be a little cross.
But he's not. When he did the Meet the Press interview this weekend, I commented on Special Report this week, he was forward-looking. He was also very generous in words towards the Dreamers, which is a relatively small group of the 10 to 20 million illegal people in the United States. People who are here without permission. There's a very small number who were brought here as children through no act of their own, and he's feeling generous to him. And I thought it was a good thing that he made those comments, because when Obama was elected, President Obama moved left, radically so. When Joe Biden was elected, he moved left, radically so. It would be nice to have a Republican move to the political center and cement the realignment which is underway. Don't you, or do you disagree with that?
I disagree with that. I don't think those words mean anything. Excuse me saying that about you, Hugh, but
that's fine.
What is the center? What is the left? What is the right? I think what they got to do is the right thing. And I think that's, first of all, there's an ultimate direction. That is, we need consent of the governed in America, and it's in danger. That's what I think. Also, we need to arm ourselves better and run a better foreign policy, better in line with our capabilities. Those are high aims of Donald Trump from the moment he appeared on the political scene. In fact, well before that, too, because he was writing about it for 20 years before he ran for president. But what do you do about the Dreamers? Well, the reason that's an expression is that there is, of course, great sympathy for children who are uprooted and sent across a border. And so what's he going to do? Well, if you can figure out how to take care of them and control the border at the same time, then God bless him. And the fact that he wants to do that only means that he's human. And I don't think that's left or right. That's both. That's, I mean, the extreme cases in the border are easy to see. Children who don't have any agency in their coming across the border, they're innocent, right? The cartels are not innocent. And so somehow you've got to oppose the cartel and not harm the children if you can help it.
Well, you see, when I say moving to the center, I really do think it's the center of optics. It's not the constitutional center. There is no such thing. It's the center of how media perceives who you are and what you want to do. Trump term one was children in cages. It was not fair. It was a policy begun by Obama. It's what happens in a detention center. Not the question of being fair, but he wants to avoid that this time because I think he likes winning by a lot. I think he likes winning the popular vote a lot. And legacy will be determined a lot by how he deals with a relatively small group of people, the Dreamers. So I'd put it in the first bill. And I think he's won the term at that point.
So good. But here remember, it's appearances are much harder to control than reality. And ultimately, perceptions are much harder to control than what you do. And so eventually, in the fullness of time, things will become clear, but they will vary around what you really, in fact, do. I do not believe that Donald Trump ever tried to subvert the Constitution of the United States. I think he was generally very respectful of it. Bill Barr, who parted company with him at the end of the last administration, wrote a thing in which he said, I just don't see where we are violating the law. And so the point is, he was painted as a dictator, but he wasn't. And I don't think he will be again. I hope not. If he is, I'll be against him. But so in other words, what you can control is what you do. And this is very hard, right? First of all, who would have, everybody knows the border is a mess. I mean, it's really a mess. That means crime, violence, arms smuggling, drug smuggling, harm to the people who live in that area, harm to many of the people who come across illegally, right? It's awful. And all you got to do is go down to Mexico and come across the border, especially if you have to do it on foot, which I did one time. And you've come into a different world. It's like the third world in some respects. So we got to clean that up. And how are you going to do that? And that's not easy. And then the problem of these children, of course they isolated that because they're part of the suffering and the most. Oh, so here, let me embark on your question again. I think Donald Trump knows a lot more than he knew in 2016 and 2020. Yes. And therefore, I don't think he's changed his opinions about being mean to children. I don't think he believes in that. Got children of his own. I think he's learned a lot about how to go about it. And, that's the human condition, right? Winston Churchill was a better statesman later in his life than he was when he was a kid, although he was really something when he was a kid, right? I think that's what's going on here. I think and when I said that thing about the transition team, it seemed to me, as these things go, hard thing to do, relatively, good as these things go. It's chaotic, but this is not their first rodeo. And they've been thinking about this for 4 years now. And
it's only chaotic in the responses. I think it's only chaotic in the responses that the media have come up with when he nominates someone like Kash Patel, about whom there hadn't been any doubt in my mind he was going to have a senior role in the incoming Trump administration from last summer. And so I'm not surprised. I just find it amazing that Washington, D.C. and the Manhattan Beltway media axis is always surprised by that which is predictable when our side, meaning the center-right, comes into power. Don't go anywhere, America. Dr. Larry Arnn is here. We're reviewing the 5 weeks since Donald Trump's election and the unfolding of the transition. When we come back, what is Mike Johnson and John Thune going to do in the first couple of weeks? Stay tuned.
Hillsdale College is a small, Christian, classical liberal arts college that operates independently of government funding, and we want you or your son or daughter to apply. At Hillsdale, students grow in heart and mind by studying timeless truths in a supportive community dedicated to the highest things. Hillsdale College costs significantly less than other nationally ranked private liberal arts colleges and receives regular recognition as a best value, and nearly all students receive financial aid. Our robust core curriculum, vibrant student life, and 8-to-1 student-to-faculty ratio make for an education like no other. For more information or to fill out an application, visit hillsdale.edu/info. That's hillsdale.edu/info.
Welcome back, America. The music means the Hillsdale Dialogue is underway. All things Hillsdale at hillsdale.edu. All of our prior dialogues are collected at hughforhillsdale.com. Dr. Arnn, one of the things that makes me happiest about the move to the afternoon, well, there are two things. One, I can have coffee in the morning without reading the newspaper that I don't want to read. I can do whatever I want in the morning now. But number two is that we will reintroduce the entire country that didn't hear the early Hillsdale Dialogues to the Hillsdale Dialogues, meaning it'll be noon, it'll be 2 o'clock in the West on a Friday afternoon when a Hillsdale Dialogue comes on, and people will be heading out earlier. They'll be picking up. It'll be 3 o'clock in the mountains, 4 o'clock in Indiana, and 5 o'clock on the East Coast. I don't know that you need any more publicity. How many people are watching your videos now?
I don't know. We have getting on for 5 million online students. And yeah, it's a lot. And it grew about 1 million last year. So we're doing okay.
And how many people get imprimis?
That's approaching 7 million, 6.8 maybe is what it is. It too is growing. Yeah, and you know, that's Hillsdale College is a terribly impractical thing. It makes money by giving stuff away. And so, you know, turns out that's a good line of work to be in.
Yeah, you know, that's not a business plan I would recommend to many institutions, but it seems to have worked up in Michigan. I am curious, yeah. Dr. Arnn, if the new regime, and by that I mean Trump transition, if there are any Hillsdale people in and around it.
Oh, yeah. Be quite a lot. Yeah. I've been asked for recommendations about the Department of Education, and have been making some. But you know, there were 15 or so Hillsdale students, people I knew, working in the White House in the first Trump administration. And none of them wants to go to the Department of Education. Because what is that thing anyway? They want.
Of course they don't want to do that.
So they're going to do something bigger than that. But education is important, especially if they cut it back or get rid of it. And I think the lady, Linda McMahon, is probably an excellent choice. I don't know her. Might meet her pretty soon. But I like the look of her. And I think she's a fighter. One of my friends said she's been in the ring with Stone Cold Austin. Yep. So there she is. Yeah. So the point is, I wouldn't want to mess with that lady. She looks like she's the real deal to me.
Well, she knows optics, too. The whole deal. The entire thing optics. They built.
Yeah, see, I should add something to your silly question about optics. And that is, Donald Trump is incredibly good at optics.
Yes, he is.
My support of him, which has been amazingly consistent for a long time, is because of the reality I see. Right. In other words, like you said, move to the center. Moving to the center, an example of that would be somebody very different from that guy Holman to run the border. Right.
Correct.
Somebody, you know, who loosened it up or not do quite so much. No, he's going to. I think the Dreamers comment, that's him figuring out, oh, yeah, I bet we can take care of that. and fix the border. And that's better if he can do both those things.
And that is what I consider to be moving to the center, because it's not actually changing the law or regulation. It is asking Congress to make an accommodation of a specific subset of those who ought not to be accommodated. And that will be perceived as a moderate, and again, we're using the language of media, a moderate thing to do. And I've never thought him to be particularly ideological, though he has a lot of things he wants to get done. I don't think he is ideological. We got a minute.
Very ideological. It's just that, remember, ideological. I don't know why is it because you're going to the afternoon that you're talking media talk today? I thought that's what we didn't do. But ideological. Winston Churchill once said, have we not an ideology of our own if we must use that ugly word? I think Donald Trump has principles, and principles don't apply equally in all cases. That's what prudence is like. But I think that his direction is he wants an open society, he wants a society in which everybody gets a chance and the people control the government.
We're coming right back. Dr. Larry Arnn will be here. All things Hillsdale at hillsdale.edu, including, no doubt, an essay on why ideology is an evil and wicked word, which I'll find out after the break. Don't go anywhere, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Welcome back, America. The Hillsdale Dialogue is underway. We will return to Plato's Republic in the last 2 weeks of the year. And then the first 2 weeks of the year, we're going to talk about the French and the American revolutions to get the world kicked off right in the new year. And then we're going to turn to these books, Marlborough, His Life and Times. Dr. Arnn sent me these books probably 25 years ago, and they're magnificent. They're not about anything that many people know about, but I had an off-the-wall question for you, Dr. Arnn. Who is the greater general, Marlborough or Wellington?
Marlborough. But they're both very great.
It didn't take very long at all.
Well, so the reason Marlborough is a greater general is that Winston Churchill wrote a 4-volume biography of him, and so we can understand him better. Nobody's done that good of work on Wellington. Wellington was a tremendous general. But
what a very good prime minister.
Marlborough,
he was not a very good prime minister.
Yeah, he was. He was. Wellington was a blessing to the world, and his generalship, in one way, was like the generalship of George Washington. George Washington, his greatest insight, in my opinion, in war, was that this is a big old country and they can't conquer it. And so I'm going to use this big old country to win this war. I'm going to wear them out. I'm going to run from them as much as I need to. And then when I finally get myself organized and get my troops organized, I'm going to pounce on them from time to time. That's pretty much what Wellington did.
You know, I've never asked this. Did Wellington have an opinion on Washington and his conduct of the Revolutionary War?
I don't know. There's Khalil. He might know.
We can't do that. We can't. You can see him, but we can't see him on the program. So I'll have to ask Khalil that next week. Let me go back to what you said in the last
there's
segment.
The anonymous.
Winston Churchill said that ideology is a bad word. When did he write that? That's new to me, and we talked a lot about Churchill on this program.
It's in a speech called The Choice for Europe in 1936, and it's a very beautiful speech. It's a very important speech. And he in the speech, he says, I'll paraphrase it for you. The best paragraph says, have we not an ideology, if we must use that ugly word, of our own, in freedom, in 2 or 3 things? Must we not produce missionaries as eager and swords as sharp as these tyrants with their ideologies? So it's a very lovely speech. And ideology is a neologism, right? It's, that's a word we made up. And because we want to, and it's part of them, when you get ologies, you're getting a patina of science around a thing. Like, what's the difference between ideology and ideas? Ideas is an old word, right? A really great word. What's your idea? That means something. What's your ideology? You're about to paint a picture of a bunch of complicated thoughts that may have nothing to do with anything. So I don't like the word.
So do you think that the president-elect has ideas but not an ideology?
Yeah, well, yeah, he has ideas. And, they are very consistent, by the way. The reason he seemed unprincipled, which is an older word and a better word than ideology, is that the conservative movement, in my opinion, had rather ossified around the compromise that Reagan produced in it. Reagan brought things together. He was very effective and made a majority. He didn't get enough done, but he got a lot done. And what was the conservative movement? It was free trade, strong national defense, a list of things. And then
religious liberty, the majority was a big part of it. He brought the religious people into the coalition.
That's right. And then the point is, are those, the conservative movement has fissures in it, fractions in it. And so it kind of got to be like this in Republican politics. That is to say, the free traders got to run trade, the economists got to run trade, maybe. We were for tax cuts. We were for national defense, but those were discrete things that, they bang up against each other all the time. Which is more important right now? How does it all work together? And in Reagan, he built a coherence out of it, but my opinion is that coherence fractured. And so now, all of a sudden, you want to run for president. You go to Washington, you make the rounds of the conservative think tanks. In front of each one, whatever they focus on, you're for that. And then you focus on something else in the next one. And Trump didn't make that trip in 2016. And he may not have even known all about that. I don't know. But that led to a split pretty early. But what was Trump saying? I met Donald Trump the first time in 2015 in February at a Lincoln Day dinner in Oakland County, California, where he upstaged me. It was amazing. He just dominated the thing. And
that's
I was
okay.
To be the keynote.
That's okay.
Oh, man. It doesn't matter whether it's okay or not. Here's how it worked. I was to be the keynote speaker. I had 24 minutes. The sitting Republican governor of Michigan got 18 minutes. The attorney general before him got 16 minutes. And I was the show. And they called me 3 or 4 days before, and they said, they've got Donald Trump coming. I said, I'll be darned. Well, he's going to speak for you. He gets 20 minutes, more than the governor and less than me. So in he comes, and everything stopped in the room. And he talked for north of 50 minutes. And I was sitting on the head table listening. And my wife leaned over at one point and said, Larry, this is outrageous. He's using up all my time. And I said, yeah, look around. It was pretty good. He had me going. And I, that was a very formative thing for me. First of all, I have not arranged my life so that I have to be in competition with Donald Trump. Else I would probably lose. But I do something else for a living. The guy who got me there, good guy, apologized to me. Because when I got up, somebody had wrung the room out, And so I talked for 5 minutes. I'm not stupid. It was good. And I'm walking out, and the guy said, I'm so sorry that happened. I said, I'm not. I said, I learned a lot just now.
That is, can we pause there? I want to underscore this for everyone who's listening. No one has ever complained that a speech is too short after a great speech. You do not want to try and trump a Trump. And that's a play on word, but I was called once to make a pitch on behalf of Young Life after a great man who just loved young life, had put on his realtors show at the Orange County Forum, and they had the Barnum and Bailey Circus. There were elephants on the stage. They had the Lion King people on stilts. All this stuff happened, and then I walked out, and I learned, never follow the elephants. You don't want to come in at the end of the circus. And so you were wise to get off the stage in a hurry. And I'll bet you the audience appreciated that.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if they even noticed. But, it was, and see, what I had been saying, first of all, I know Donald Trump a bit, and I like him. He's not warm and cuddly in my experience, but he's a very powerful guy. And I had not liked him before. All I knew was his image, right? All anybody knew was his image. And I don't follow the, chat shows on the TV. And so I didn't really, at that moment, fully understand what he was doing. And, he was talking in those first days about the border and about tariffs and free trade and NAFTA. And that was his core things, right? And Winston Churchill was a free trader. So, of course, I am too. Abraham Lincoln was a protectionist. So, of course, I am too. As I like to say, the natural law does not speak to me on these questions. And,
when we come back, hold on, we got to go to a break. I want to ask you about the tariff question specifically. Don't go anywhere, America. The Hillsdale Dialogue continues.
It's no secret that Americans are more divided than ever. And it's not just over what policies will improve our great country. No, it's over whether America is great at all, whether America deserves our love. That's why Imprimis is so important. Imprimis looks at the issues of the day from a constitutional perspective, reminding citizens always of our great heritage of liberty. For more than 50 years, Imprimis has featured speeches from the smartest conservative thinkers and writers at Hillsdale events. These days, Hillsdale publishes people like Molly Hemingway, Andy Puzder, Harmeet Dillon, and Chris Rufo. Over 6.4 million American households and businesses receive Imprimis absolutely free. And I urge you to sign up for it today at no charge. To get your free lifetime subscription, go to hillsdale.edu/lifetime right now. Or text the word Imprimis to 71844 and we'll send you a link to sign up for your free lifetime subscription. That's IMPRIMIS to 71844.
I have learned in my 35 years of radio that the quickest way to lose a radio audience is to discuss tariffs. So we're going to talk about tariffs here for a moment. Dr. Arnn, George Washington was in favor of tariffs. You mentioned Alexander Hamilton was in favor of tariffs. Abraham Lincoln was in favor of tariffs. Ronald Reagan was not. How ought this audience to approach Donald Trump's rhetoric about tariffs?
Okay, I can explain this. The reason I can explain it is that I have the honor not to be an economist, but I knew Milton Friedman for 35 years and loved him. And he was very nice to me. He was a genius, right? So he's a radical free trader. And here's the argument for free trade is simple. I teach college and run a college, and Lee Habib runs radio programming, and you do a radio show. None of us can do all three of those things.
Correct.
And if we focus on one, then we can trade with each other and benefit from each other. That's what we call in economics the division of labor. And so free trade is just the argument that if you expand that globally, you'll get more efficiency. And I agree with that. I think that's true, right? And so, I learned that from Milton Friedman. And then I said, probably then we should get the Soviet Union to make our military equipment because they seem pretty good at it and the labor rates are lower over there. And he said, well, you can't quite do that. And so borders matter, right? The difference between the division of labor between you and me and your colleague Lee is that we're fellow citizens together, right? And unlikely to make war on each other. And so the border matters. And that means that it's obvious to me that we have let our manufacturing, it's just Trump is threatening tariffs against China and probably did them before. And they have replied that they're going to withhold defense production materials from us. I know we can't meet our quota of submarines where we have a rare military advantage because we need parts from them that they're not sending us. And so we need not just to make our own submarines, we need the other factors of production, which are materials and labor and know-how. And we need all that to defend ourselves, right? And that means you have to have some kind of industrial policy. And then the question is how much and how far. And there isn't, in my opinion, there isn't any absolute answer to that. Because I can tell you what the evil that can arise is. If you put quotas on steel, then the reason you do it, put tariffs or quotas on steel, is because somebody's selling you steel cheaper than you can make it yourself. And that hurts the people who buy steel, right? That's bad. On the other hand, submarines are made out of steel. So is the Cybertruck, which I happen to want one. And I think they're just ugly enough, and I really like Elon Musk.
They are really ugly.
Buy one.
They are really ugly.
Yeah, isn't that great?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you said that with the wrong tone of voice because I was thinking, Hugh, that you're a boy and you would admire the fact that they're ugly.
No, they're the kind of thing Dwayne would drive over the side of the toll road in California and walk away from. I've seen them, and I think they're very, very ugly, but I can see you. Are you going to put a turret on it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I've got I've got a big maintenance department here. And, they like the look of it. So I'm going to get me a snowplow, and I'm going to help them plow the snow in the morning in my Cybertruck.
I'm all in favor of that. Bottom line, though, tariffs are a prudential question. And I've always told people, as a matter of national strategy, they make a lot of sense. As a matter of economic growth for the world, they don't make a lot of sense. But we've got to put our national security ahead of the world's economic growth. That's my answer on that.
This, the point is, the devil is in the detail, right? And, if you read Victor Hansen's Dying Citizen, it contains some shocking thing, right? Victor is very smart. And apparently 9 million people have left California. And who are those people?
You and me.
Workers with kids, right?
Yep.
And there's no jobs for them there. And the taxes are god-awful. And so to live in California, he describes that they're building a society in which it's a really good thing to be rich, which commonly is in most societies. And it's okay to be poor. But if you're going to try to just be a regular working Joe, it's getting harder and harder.
We're going to have to come back to California another week.
That's got something to do with...
Because we're back on the air in California in 2 more weeks at a time and at a place where they need some guidance, and they'll get it from the Hillsdale Dialogue. That's the report card after 5 weeks of election aftermath, and we're both pretty optimistic, Dr. Arnn and myself, about the way this is going, and hopefully when the new year rolls around, we will still be that way. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Dr. Arnn. All things Hillsdale at hillsdale.edu. All of the Hillsdale Dialogues, all hundreds of them are at viewforhillsdale.com. Come back next week on the next Hugh Hewitt Show.
Thanks for listening to the Hillsdale Dialogues, part of the Hillsdale College Podcast Network. More episodes at podcast.hillsdale.edu or wherever you find your audio. For more information about Hillsdale College, head to hillsdale.edu.